Grognard here, back with a shave, a new shirt, and another episode of more role-playing stuff. Today I want to talk about superhero role-playing games. The genre is kind of near and dear to my heart because, as I've said before, it saved me from leaving the hobby. I had, at the time, around the early 80s, I'd learned to play AD&D and Gamma World, and was kind of like underwhelmed and burnt out. I don't know if it was because my DM or I don't know what. But anyway, my DM, for her birthday, got a copy of First Edition Champions, and she let me borrow it. And I just went nuts over it. I love the point allocation system, and I thought it was a really clever way of doing it. And it really lit a creative fire under my butt. So thank you, superheroes. I appreciate that. Okay, let me give you a little, we'll go through like this in rough history. The first one was called Superhero 2044. I hear it was kind of clunky. I've never seen it. I've never played it. And from what I understand, it was superheroes in a futuristic setting, a la DC's Legion of Superheroes. And it had limited run, and I think there's still fans for it out there, but it's not played much. Well, the next thing to come along is Jeff D's Villains and Vigilantes by Fantasy Games Unlimited. That was rather successful. It's still being played. It's kind of a randomized superpower type game, and I have a copy around here somewhere. I can't find it for some reason, but that also has its fans. A lot of people started gaming with that game. I'm not too crazy about it. For some reason, it just doesn't work for me. I don't know why, but I mean, point allocation aside, this is more like either you choose your powers or you roll them up. It just, I don't know, something didn't jive with it. But anyway, the next one was the biggie. That was Champions. This used to be, well, for a long time, this was my go-to game for supers. Point allocation. This is the 4th edition. It's up to 6 editions right now, maybe 7. I don't know. But this is I started with, I know I read 1st and 2nd, but the first copy I owned was 3rd edition. And then I went to 4th when it came out, and this is where it clarified it for me, right here. This clarified all the hero system rules. It's gone on to be the hero system, and it works. Because before that, Hero Games put out Champions, and then they put out Danger International, which was Spies. They also put out Fantasy Hero, which was their fantasy version, and everything was the hero system, but it worked a little differently and the point costs were different. So everybody was like, you had to buy all the games to get all the rules, and you know, you couldn't, it was very hard to do one thing and another because the point costs were different. For instance, a friend of mine decided to run a super mage like Doctor Strange in a Champions game, and he decided he wanted to use the magic system from Fantasy Hero, which was basically a cut down version of the powers in Champions. And he played one session and the DM forbade him to play that character again because he just ran roughshod over everybody because he was paying so cheap for spells. And so when 4th edition came along, it codified everything. It's like, okay, everything's going to work this way. We're going to have power level limits that the GM is going to set and all this kind of thing. And you can play theoretically pretty much anything. I think it does some genres better than others. It does the supers best, but I think it does like Spies and Pulp real good too. Fantasy, I don't think so. About that time, GURPS came out a few years later, and they came out with GURPS Supers, which was based on the GURPS system. We played that, but I was never totally comfortable with it because even though it's a point allocation system, they didn't do a kind of a... Champions was linear. I mean, you know what you're buying. 5 points bought you 1d6 of damage for an energy blast, or every 5 points of strength you did a d6. It was all based on d6, which was GURPS too, but they would do more... they would base their costs on something a little more non-linear, which kind of... I couldn't get it. We played a campaign, and it seemed like every time we finished a session, I had to rewrite my character, and I didn't want to do that. So, you know, what are you going to do? Anyway, I wasn't completely comfortable with it. After that, Chaosium came out with this game called Worlds of Wonder, which was 3 genres in one. It was space, supers, and fantasy. And the supers part, Super World, got broke off into its own system. I've never played it. I don't know anything about it. But like I said, there's fans out there. Maybe somebody can tell me about it sometime. Also, good old Palladium came out with Heroes Unlimited. There's a lot of stuff in this book. I've never completely understand how it works. But there are so many, it seems there are systems for subsystems depending on what kind of super you want to play. See, I've never played any of their games like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Rifts or anything like that. But it just seems to me like the role-playing equivalent of Microsoft, where every time they turned out a version of Windows, different people would get together and make different parts of it. Then they'd bring it together and try and figure out how it all worked. And that's the way it seemed in Palladium. And also, I think they really love their abbreviations. I mean, Hero has got abbreviations in there, but I understand them. But they're doing like, okay, the SME is greater than the COB, and I'm going, whoa. Stop, please. You're getting me kind of confused. Then we come to the first iteration of Marvel Superheroes. This is the advanced set. I like this game. If I don't want to deal with like champions and things, you know, a lot of point allocation, I'll go for this over V&V. For some reason, this is also, you can roll your own or make one, but it's a lot clearer. They've came out with a lot of supplements for this, and the one thing that it comes with a player's book, a judge's book, player's book, judge's book, and there's this accessory called the Ultimate Powers book that he sold separately, which brings it up to it ramps it up to 11 pretty much. And this is a one chart book. In the back of the books, they have this colored chart, and everything rolls on it. Everything. To hit or to miss, to do a skill check, everything. So, and it's a percentile based system. So they did a very good job of boiling it all down to one thing, and it feels very Marvel, which is what I love. Marvel's games have gone through many iterations. Many companies have had the license, but I think this one is the best. They call it Marvel Face Rip for the seven stats, but this was the best. Then D20 came along, 3rd edition, okay? And you got 2 versions of this. Not 2 versions, but I mean 2 different companies. The late Guardians of Order came out with Silver Age Sentinels. Now, I mention this because this is they had a tri-stat system, what they call a tri-stat system. And they did this for a game called Big Eyes, Small Mouth they put out, which is an anime. It was an anime game. And they based theirs on D6. Well, this is based on D10. There's 3 stats, and it goes from there. The reason I mention this is because they put out a D20 version of this. It was a mess. It was like, I felt like they were trying to shoehorn this into the D20 system. And, you know, classes, as far as I'm concerned, classes and levels do not work with superheroes. They just don't. And they were kind of bound to it because they were using the D20 license. Well, along came a little while later, Green Ronin's Mutants and Masterminds. This is the 2nd edition. And they also used the same open gaming license they did. Well, they went the party line for D20. They took the option of using the OGL because if you go D20, you have to use the system as is. You have to fit it into that class and level D&D type of thing. Well, they said, well, that's not going to work. So they took the OGL, Open Gaming License, which opened it up for like you can do a point allocation system. You don't need classes and levels. They don't even have hit points in here. And this one, it comes real close to. I mean, if I wasn't playing Champions, and I didn't want to. You know, if I wanted a real superhero game, I didn't want to play Marvel and Champions, this was the second one. this right here, this is a good, solid game, especially the second edition. I hear they're in the third, which they changed a few things. I don't know. I haven't seen it, but this is the one I managed. I didn't play very much of it because basically I couldn't find anybody who wanted to play it. But that's pretty much my rundown for the Supers games. If I had to run a Supers game right now, it'd probably be either Marvel or Mutants and Masterminds. I spent 12 years playing Champions. I love Champions as a player. I love making my own superheroes, things like that. As a GM, that's a lot of paper to push. I'm used to the D&D where I have a monster sheet right here with the monsters and their hit dice and their hit points and their armor and what they do to damage and blah, 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 and mark off the hit points. And in a superhero game like Champions, you have so many different, like, if you have a group of 5 supervillains, you got 5 separate sheets, 5 separate stats. Sure, you could probably put it on one sheet and such, but I ran a short battle with my grandson last night, and I was exhausted by the end, especially since I couldn't hit anything. But I was totally exhausted. I'd rather have something simpler like Mutants and Masterminds, maybe, but definitely I think I'm going to go back to Marvel with him because he just enjoys the superhero thing of flying around, hitting people, and things like that. Anyway, that's my take on Supers. Hope to see you at a table sometime at a Supers game. And everybody, take care. I'll see you next time.